Hey beautiful people, I'm Lucy and today we're gonna talk about how to make sure your photos always look sharp. This is something that people ask me all the time. They're always saying, why do their photos look blurry? Why do they look kind of soft? Even though they've spent a ton of time trying to get the focus just right. And here's the thing, usually it has nothing to do with focus. So I'm gonna talk about the #1 setting you need to pay attention to if you want your photos to look sharp. But first, I have to say a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Whether you need a domain, a website, or an online store, make it with Squarespace because they are the best. I mean, come on, they're awesome. All right, let's get into the video. So when people are looking back at their photos and you can tell that they're kind of blurry, they're kind of soft, they don't look in focus, of course, our first instinct is to say, I messed up on the focus. Why didn't I get the focus right? Here's the thing, you probably did. When you're taking a photo, you're looking through that viewfinder, you really can tell when a photo is in focus or not. There's also little things you can turn on your camera to highlight what's in focus if you're having trouble with that. But 9 times out of 10, that is not the issue, and the issue isn't the aperture. The main issue, when people show me their settings, this is what I see that's wrong: the shutter speed. This is the #1 setting that you need to pay attention to if you want your photos to look sharp. Now, shutter speed is so important because it is how quickly the shutter of your camera is opening and closing when you press that shutter button. So the higher it is, the faster it is. That means that moment is going really, really quickly. You're almost freezing a moment in time. So a shutter speed of something like 1/500th of a second, you're gonna get a really crisp moment. But if you go for a low shutter speed, like 1/10th of a second, what's actually gonna happen is in the time that the shutter is opening and closing, you actually have captured motion blur. So it's opening and closing slowly, and in that time, maybe your model moved slightly or your camera moved just by taking the photo, and you start to capture motion blur. So even though your focus was totally on point, you got that so right, something moved and shifted and your shutter speed was too slow to just capture that one moment. Now, I'm gonna go take a few really simple photos to show you how this affects your photos. All right, so I just have the camera mounted on a tripod, and I'm gonna do a group of photos at a couple different shutter speeds. So any motion blur you see is actually just from the amount that I'm moving, which really isn't that much. All right, so we have some example photos to actually look at now. So these are just unedited so that you can really just focus on how blurry or soft these photos look or don't look. So let's compare some photos in this group to really see what's going on. So this one is the faster shutter speed at 2/50th of a second. This is the slower shutter speed at 1/50th. And you can see right off the bat, you don't even need to zoom in, the motion blur on the hand, the hair, is really, really noticeable. So the faster shutter speed one, we don't have any of these issues, right? So on those kind of bigger movements, you really, really notice that with shutter speed. But even in photos where your model is almost still and there's very little movement happening, you're still gonna see the effect of the shutter speed. So look at these two photos. I'm not really moving too much in either of these ones, but again, this is the one faster shutter speed, 2/50th of a second. This is the slower one at 1/50th of a second. At this view, this one actually looks fine, but when we zoom in, we're gonna see the big difference here. Look at that. See the slight motion blur. It looks like it's slightly out of focus. It's not out of focus. I don't know, I probably breathed in a little bit, I moved slightly. So you can see this photo is way, way sharper. This one, not so sharp. So there you go. I know that those were super simple photos, but I want to show you guys that shutter speed matters for headshots, for portraits, for lifestyle stuff, not just high action things. This really impacts how sharp your photos look. So if you've been having issues with your photos looking blurry or soft, check out your shutter speed, try to start working with this to get your photos looking really good. Now, if you're a beginner, you do lifestyle, you wanna do some photos like this, I suggest you keep your shutter speed around 1/250th of a second. I really think that that is the safe zone for protecting against wiggle room, you holding the camera, your model moving. It lets them move a bit more naturally too, but you don't capture any motion blur. Once again, thank you to the team over at Squarespace for sponsoring this video. You guys know this already, but I really love Squarespace. And if you're a creative type like me, whether you do photography or video, it's really important to then back up all that beautiful work you're doing with a beautiful website. And I 100% believe that Squarespace has the most beautiful templates, the most beautiful websites that you can make online right now. And they're also the easiest. It's so easy to go make a gorgeous portfolio that's gonna blow your clients away, and they're gonna be like, yes, hiring that person. That looks great. So yeah, go check out squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Lucy for 10% off your first order. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.